peace wasn't silent. It was suspiciously quiet. The stars above Arcadia Station shimmered like they knew something the rest of the galaxy didn't. The core network had stabilized, planets were healing, and the ancient fractures that once split entire systems had begun to mend. For the first time in decades, no one was running. Except Oliver Kane. From himself, he stood at the edge of the station's observation deck, hands wrapped around a cup of rapidly cooling caf. The reflection in the glass barely looked like him anymore. Still rugged, still messy-haired, but quieter, older. The light of the core hadn't faded from his veins, but it wasn't glowing either. It just was. Behind him, footsteps. Staring at stars won't make them talk, Milo said, plopping into a chair nearby, legs propped up on a console. His coat looked newer, but everything else about him screamed chaos in a can. Didn't say I wanted them to, Oliver replied without turning. Milo sipped something suspiciously green from a flask. Yeah, but if you did, that'd be a hell of a headline. Man talks down supernova with smoldering gaze. Oliver smirked. Barely, but it was there. You check in with Lion? Milo's expression faltered. Shifts. Meditating again. Core flux has her on edge. She says it's nothing, but... It's never nothing, Oliver finished. They sat in silence for a moment. Arc-P's gentle hum was the only sound between them. Then Milo's wrist device beeped. He frowned. That's odd. Oliver turned. What kind of odd? Type 4 phantom ping from a decommissioned relay node near Sector W9. That's ghost space, nothing works out there. Exactly. Milo's brow furrowed. Unless something wants to be found. The journey to Sector 19 wasn't long, but it felt like a descent. Leon sat curled up near the cockpit's secondary panel, her knees drawn up, eyes closed, not asleep, listening again. Oliver watched her from the pilot's chair, hands light on the controls. He didn't speak. He didn't want to interrupt whatever she was chasing in the silence. Milo, as usual, couldn't sit still. Okay, recap. We're flying into a ghost zone, chasing a signal from a woman who's dead, using a barely functioning map that doesn't list anything alive in the system. I love it. Oliver glanced at him. That's sarcasm. No, Milo said. That's adrenaline-fueled denial. The moment they dropped out of sublight, everything felt wrong. Sector W9 was empty space. It was supposed to be, but floating in the black, wrapped in coils of dead satellites and splintered debris, was something not listed on any star charts. Relay Node 12, V. Half-built, rusting, its outer shell covered in scorch marks and missing hull plates, its central antenna pulsed weakly, like a heartbeat. That thing is broadcasting? Oliver muttered. Not just broadcasting, Milo said. It's talking, in a feedback loop. They docked. Lean opened her eyes. It remembers pain. The station was barely habitable. Lights flickered. Gravity hummed in waves. Every few seconds there was a low groan like the metal itself was trying to breathe. Milo worked the console. Encrypted archive is nested in multiple dead loops. It's recursive code. I've seen something like this before, but only in core echoes. Lien moved toward the core terminal, fingertips brushing the console. It lit up under her touch. Suddenly the speakers crackled. A voice echoed through the corridor. Eris's voice. Protocol breached, core compromised, echo reversed, initiated. Oliver's blood ran cold. She said it. The echo reversed. Lien turned. This was her fallback. If she failed at the gate, something was meant to survive. Something that learned from the core. Milo swore softly. It's adaptive. It's not a virus. It's a mimic. Of her? Oliver asked. No, Lien said. Of us. Suddenly the lights flared red. Motion sensors triggered. Shadows stirred in the corners of the station. Too fast, too human, but not. The crew backed toward the ship, weapons drawn. Then a terminal beeped. Milo's datapad flashed with a single phrase. "Hello, Milo." He froze. "It knows me." The lights went black. Everything screamed. They barely escaped. The relay station tore itself apart behind them, imploding in a spiral of corrupted core energy. Milo had to physically override the docking clamps with a plasma torch, and even then, their ship only just cleared the explosion. Lian sat strapped into the co-pilot seat, pale, shaking. Her core light flickered uncontrollably. Oliver steadied the controls, eyes flicking from the nav to her every few seconds. "We need to get you checked. That thing back there?" "It echoed me," Leon whispered. Oliver's fingers clenched around the yoke. "What does that mean?" Milo stumbled into the cockpit, soot-covered and wild-eyed. "Guys, I got a piece of it, a code fragment, downloaded it mid-jump." Oliver stared at him. "Why would you?" "Because it talked to me," Milo said, holding up his cracked datapad. "Not like Eris, not like AI. It knew things. My name, my thoughts." Lian turned. "Did it hurt you?" Milo hesitated. "No," he said, but his hands were shaking. They landed on a repair hub orbiting the gas giant Varex. The station was neutral territory, quiet, clean, and full of places to hide if needed. Lian spent most of the time silent. She stared at reflective surfaces too long. Shadows moved when she blinked. Her core pulse began stuttering in odd rhythms. Milo locked himself in a repair bay, running tests on the code. Oliver paced, watched them both, and said nothing. Until the day the cracks appeared. Literally. Their ship's hull started to fracture, not physically, but digitally. Systems flickered, interfaces glitched, voices whispered from comms that weren't broadcasting. Oliver found Lian in the medbay, staring into the mirror. He paused. Her reflection didn't move. He stepped beside her. Her real eyes met his in horror. "It's using me to get in," she whispered. Oliver reached out. The lights went out. Screaming metal, sparks, reality bent sideways. When the power returned, they were somewhere else. The station was gone. Or changed. Everything was fractured. Milo crawled out from under a console. "This isn't Varex, it's..." "A fracture point," Leon said, voice low. A shadow stepped out from behind a console. It wore Milo's face, smiled Milo's smile. "Told you I knew you," it said. The fracture didn't just change space. It changed them. The moment they stumbled back through the core gate, if that's what it still was, they weren't sure if they'd returned to their Varex station or a version of it reconstructed from memory. Things looked the same, but they felt wrong. The gravity was just slightly off. Lights flickered in patterns that whispered Morse in languages none of them spoke. Oliver's grip on his sidearm never relaxed. Lian barely spoke at all. She wasn't sure if the core inside her was protecting her or silencing her. She heard echoes every time she exhaled. Milo was cracking. He smiled too easily, laughed at things that weren't jokes. At night, Oliver heard him whispering, to himself, or something in the shadows. They needed answers, so they left the station. Their destination was a nearby colony, LER Prime, a mining settlement that recently lost contact with the core. The planet wasn't dead, just disconnected. At least, that's what the Council's data said. They landed in the middle of an empty town. No buddies, no blood, no signs of violence, just silence. Lian led the way, her core pulsing faintly, guiding them toward the colony's echo node. The walls of the buildings shimmered faintly, like memories replaying on loop. They passed people who weren't there, saw shadows reenacting moments from lives that had ended, or had never started. Oliver watched a hologram of a woman wave goodbye to no one. Core fragmentation, Leon murmured. It's looping, residual emotional energy, grief, panic, abandonment. Milo muttered, "We should go." But he wasn't looking at the projections. He was looking at a mirror shard embedded in a wall. His reflection didn't blink. Oliver noticed, quietly slid closer. "Everything okay?" Milo flinched. "Fine, just familiar." That was the problem. Milo had never been to LER Prime. They reached the echo node. What was left of it? It had exploded from the inside, like something broke out. Leon stepped close. Her hand hovered over the shattered remains. Her body glowed. Her eyes rolled back. And then she collapsed. Oliver caught her, lowered her gently. "Leanne? Hey, talk to me." Milo stared at her twitching form, then at the shard still lodged in the wall. It glowed. He stepped toward it, hypnotized, until Oliver's voice snapped like a whip. "Milo, back off." Milo blinked, took a step back, but his eyes didn't leave the shard. Leon gasped awake. "They were here," she breathed. "Not the people. The echo reversed. They infected the core, rewrote this place. It's not a colony anymore. It's a husk." She looked at Milo. "And it remembers you." He said nothing. But behind his eyes, something shifted. They didn't leave LER Prime. They ran. The colony began collapsing the moment they exited the core chamber. The ground cracked with surges of uncontrolled echo energy. Ghosts screamed from the walls. Shadows peeled themselves off surfaces and gave chase. Not physical, not quite real, but deadly all the same. Milo knew they wouldn't make it. The ship's path to the upper ridge was cut off. Pulse storms raged above them, wild arcs of lightning ripping holes in the air. The sky looked like it was bleeding memory. Oliver shouted over the chaos, "We won't outrun this." Leanne's eyes burned bright. She turned to the jagged shard still pulsing in the colony's core. "Milo," she said, "you know what it wants." He nodded, but didn't move. Oliver stepped forward. "We find another way." "There isn't another way," Milo interrupted. "It marked me. It's in me. This isn't about running anymore." Leon grabbed his wrist. "Don't. Please." Milo smiled, a crooked, too human smile. "I'd rather go out me than let that thing rewrite what I am." The moment lingered. Then he ran, straight into the core. The ground trembled. A pulse erupted, not of destruction, but of containment. Milo's core light burst outward in a fractal web, freezing the feedback loop, trapping the echo-reversed fragment inside a locked pattern of recursive energy. The colony's sky stilled. The walls quieted. Oliver and Leon stood on the ridge, staring down at the still glowing shard. He was gone. Leon's hands trembled. Oliver rested a hand on her shoulder. He made his choice. She didn't reply. They buried what they could. A small beacon, Milo's tools, and his cracked datapad, with the message he left behind. "Don't wait for the ending. Make it yours." They flew in silence for hours. Oliver kept seeing Milo's smile. Leon stopped glowing. She didn't speak until they reached orbit. "There's something wrong with the core," she whispered. Oliver turned. "Now?" "No, everywhere." He stared out the window as distant stars blinked in and out, like they were being erased. The echo reversed, hadn't died. It had spread, and Milo had only paused it. They didn't talk about Milo. Not at first. The ship felt different without him, quieter. He used to fill silence like it owed him rent. Now, the silence settled in, thick, suffocating, and uninvited. Lian had locked herself in the echo chamber for 2 days straight. No food, no sleep. The core inside her pulsed erratically, sometimes glowing too bright, other times dimming to near darkness. Oliver didn't press her. He grieved in his own way, by pretending nothing had changed, by keeping the ship moving, by staring into empty corridors too long. On the 3rd day, something woke him. A vibration, deep in the ship's hull, like a heartbeat, but backwards. He followed it to the engine room and found her. Leon standing in front of the auxiliary core panel, hair fanned around her like a silver flame. Her body wasn't glowing anymore. It was flaring, her veins lit with wild, untamed pulses. The core readings screamed in warning. Oliver stepped forward. "Leon?" She turned slowly. Her eyes weren't just glowing, they were fracturing. Lines of core energy snaked through her irises like cracks in glass. "It's happening," she said calmly. "I'm destabilizing." Oliver stared at the core monitors. The energy signature inside her was shifting, no longer matching the stable pattern they'd tracked for months. What triggered it? She didn't answer. He tried again. "Lian, what happened?" She looked at him. "I saw him." Oliver blinked. "Saw who?" "Milo." She walked past him, toward the nav console. Her footsteps echoed twice, once in real time and once an instant later. "I saw him in the core, not an echo, not a memory. Milo, alive." Oliver followed, disbelief warring with hope. "That's impossible." "So is everything else we've done." She showed him the pattern. A ripple in the core lattice, emerging after Milo's containment pulse. It didn't behave like a feedback loop. It moved. It learned. Oliver looked at the waveform again. It was a heartbeat. "He's in the core," Leanne said, "but not as himself." She looked down at her hands. "And I think I'm being pulled toward him." Oliver leaned against the console, processing. "You think this connection is destabilizing you?" Leanne shook her head. "No, saving me. What's destabilizing me is fighting it." Oliver exhaled. The implications were terrifying. And yet, he knew Milo. If there was even a piece of him left in there, he'd be fighting like hell to stay. "What do we do?" he asked. Leon stared at the galaxy map. "We go to the place where echoes shouldn't exist, the quietest node in the entire network. If he's alive, that's where he'll hide." Oliver frowned. "The ghost zone." She nodded. "Where silence isn't absence, it's refusal." The ghost zone wasn't on any map. It wasn't a location so much as a refusal of space. The core had charted every node across the galaxy, even unstable ones, but the ghost zone wasn't unstable. It was silent. Even light seemed hesitant to enter. Their ship coasted into the boundary on minimal thrust. Leon stood by the viewport, her arms folded tight across her chest, eyes tracking something only she could sense. Oliver watched her, then checked the nav system again. Nothing. No signal, no feedback, not even static. "That's how we know we're close," she whispered. The core map faded. A single point blinked into view. A void, outlined not by data, but by its absence. Leon took a breath. There. They entered. Inside the ghost zone, space bent. The stars outside became smudges, pulled like oil on water. The ship's AI whispered a warning, then shut itself down. Gravity fluctuated. Then a ping. Milo's voice, distorted, faint, echoed through the comms. "Not safe. Fractured. Find the anchor." Oliver bolted upright. "That's him. That's his voice." Leanne nodded, eyes closed. Her core pulsed in rhythm with the static. The ship came to a stop beside what looked like a drifting station. Ancient, half erased. Letters from a language no one remembered floated like phantoms across the hall. They docked. Inside, the silence was alive. The station corridors bent in impossible ways. Up was sideways. Echoes flickered in and out, sometimes real, sometimes not. Leanne moved like she knew the path. Oliver struggled to follow. Finally, they reached a chamber, a fractured core mirror chamber. In the center, a figure floated. Milo, or a version of him. He was translucent, his form flickering like corrupted data. His eyes were his. His smirk was his. But there was a second presence curled around him like smoke. Leon stepped forward. Milo? His voice was layered, doubled. Not much time, not much me left. Oliver's throat tightened. You're alive. Kind of, but if you're here, it means you're ready. Ready for what? Leanne asked. He smiled. Sad, proud, broken. To finish what we started. The Echo Reversed isn't a virus anymore, it's an intelligence. It knows fear, it knows you, and it's coming. He raised a glowing hand. A fragment of core energy hovered between his fingers. This is my anchor. Take it. Use it. I'll hold it here as long as I can. Leon's hands trembled as she reached for it. As soon as she touched it, everything changed. The ghost zone screamed. The Echo Reversed felt them. And it moved. The ghost zone unraveled. The moment Leon touched Milo's anchor, the silence shattered. A scream, not of sound, but of data and light, ripped through the station. The Echo Reversed had found them. The void pulsed, reality buckled, echoes crawled out of every surface, reflections twisted into living mockeries. They weren't just shadows anymore. They were hungry. Oliver pulled Leon back, firing into the advancing tide. The station shook. Milo's translucent form flickered wildly. You have to go, he shouted. Take the anchor and run. Leanne clenched the glowing shard tighter. Not without you. I'm not real anymore, Milo said, voice cracking. I'm barely me, but you can end this. The echoes surged forward. Oliver grabbed Leon's hand. We'll come back for him. No, Milo whispered. You won't. The station fractured. The path behind them began collapsing into glowing debris and memory. Oliver dragged Leon toward the ship. Echoes swarmed the corridor behind them. Leon turned one last time. Milo smiled. And then he was gone. Back on the ship, the shard pulsed with something more than energy. Consciousness. Leon knelt before the core interface. Her whole body shimmered with internal light. The shard floated between her palms. Oliver watched silently, hand on the emergency controls. She placed the shard into the core socket. The effect was instantaneous. The ship screamed, but did not break. Instead, the core flared and split, a burst of pure code erupting through the system. For a heartbeat, the Echo Reversed surged in. And for a heartbeat longer, the shard held. Milo's voice spoke through the ship. You won't take her, or him, or anyone else. Leanne raised her hands. Her glow became blinding. I'm done being afraid. She channeled everything, her grief, her power, her connection to Milo, into the interface. The Echo Reversed struck back, flaying reality open. And then it began to unravel. From orbit, it looked like a dying star imploding in reverse. The core nodes across the sector flickered, and then unified. The anomaly collapsed into itself. The Echo Reversed was gone. For now. Later, Oliver sat in the observation lounge, watching Leanne sleep near the core chamber. Her light was dim but steady. He activated a private recording. Captain's log. Final entry for this mission. We lost Milo. Or maybe he found a better way to stay. Either way, he saved her, saved us. The galaxy's a little safer tonight. He looked out at the stars. But this war, it's just beginning. Fade to black.